Good morning, everybody. Is everybody in, Abby? Apologies for the slightly late start. We just had a bit of a technical hitch, but you're all very welcome to this question and answer event this morning, predominantly for providers who are starting their T-levels in 2024, but I think we might have a few wave 4 providers on here as well. So just whilst we're waiting for more people to come in to the event, just want to draw your attention to a few events that we've got coming up. We've got a Provider Insight Day at Newcastle under Lyme College, which Maggie will tell you a little bit, or she'll mention a little bit later. We've got one at Liverpool City College on the Friday the 3rd of March, one at Fareham College on Wednesday the 26th of April, and these are brilliant opportunities to go and visit providers, 2020, 2021 providers who have been implementing T-levels already. So it's a great opportunity to go and speak to their senior leadership teams, their curriculum teams, to look at how they've spent their specialist equipment allowance. So if you get a chance to come on to one of our Provider Insight Days, please do. We've also got, and I think Susan's putting links in the chat as well for those. We've also got a T-level national learning event, which is a full day event face-to-face in Birmingham. And there, again, it'll be an opportunity to benefit from existing providers and talk to some employers and network with Wave 4 and Wave 5 providers. And the next event specifically for you as Wave 5 providers will be on Monday the 27th of March. And that's the planning process for industry placements. So you might like to put that in your diary and book that in. But there's links in the chat for those events. Okay, I'll come back to those if people miss them. So again, welcome this morning. Happy Friday. I'm sure everybody's delighted that it's Friday. Just introduce some of the AOC team. We've got Steve Waterston here, who's our delivery lead for T-level programs. Myself, who's a lead T-level and TLTP advisor. Richard, who is doing a part of the presentation as well. And we've got Susan Taylor, who is working in the background. And we've also got Abby Stewart, who's in the background as well. We've also got our prestigious panel who will introduce themselves a bit later on, but we've got Kirstie Kohling from Notre, we've got Maggie Law from Newcastle under Lyme College, and we've got Alex Charlesworth, who's from the Association of Colleges. So a great panel indeed, I would say. So just a few housekeeping things, just if you could keep your microphones on mute, please. Just there's less sort of interference in the background. And any questions that you've got, if you can put them in the chat, please. It's really difficult for us to see if people are putting their hands up. We will try and keep an eye out. But if you have any questions, then please put them in the chat. So the presentation is being recorded, and we'll share this with you all after the event, and also we'll put it on our Padlet. Okay. So the objectives today are for Richard to give you just a quick demonstration about the T-level planner and look at the benefits of that, and also for you to gather information and advice and insight from existing T-level providers. Okay, so I will hand you over to Richard, who will explain a little bit more about the T-level planner.
Yeah, so if you can just stop sharing your screen.
I will.
Excellent, hopefully you can see that. Okay then, so this is really just a brief introduction to the T-level planner, particularly if you're not using the planner yet. The planner allows you to create a plan to help you work towards the delivery of your T-levels. and it really consists of two parts. So the first part is an overarching plan that covers all the T-level routes that you might be doing. So whether you're doing 1, 2 or 3, each plan will have one of these main plans as shown on screen here. This is just a part of the plan. And this covers the key areas which were identified by Wave 1 providers. So it looks at the management and internal comms, the systems and structures that you have in your school or college, how you're progressing with employer and stakeholder engagement, thinking about your students' progression into and out of the T-levels, student support, and also the marketing that you need to put in place. So this will cover all of the T-levels that you intend to start to deliver. One of the nice features of the plan, so as you populate it, you can update the readiness ratings of each section, and then you can see at a glance at the top of the screen the overall progress of this part of the plan, and for each section you also have a sort of a progress bar. So if you're developing this plan with a wider team and they're updating it as they go, you can keep a track of the status of your plan. Another nice feature of the plan is the help function. So each of the questions has a little sort of information box which gives you links to the DFE guidance and resources. So here's an example for that particular question. So it just gives you a little bit of background and also the links to the support materials that will help you if you feel you need more assistance with making progress on that area. So that's the main plan, but you're also able to create individual, if you like, curriculum area plans for each T-level. So if you're doing 1 T-level, you may have just one of these extra plans. If you're doing 2, you'll have 2, etc. So here's an example which I've just called the digital T-level plan. So the areas that this covers are professional readiness of your staff, the development of your curriculum, so how the planning is going, the delivery of the T-level, the industry placement for this particular T-level route, so how that is progressing. So obviously some might be progressing better than others, and also to think about the environment and equipment that you'll need to deliver that particular T-level. And as before, it includes the help and guidance for each section. So again, you can just quickly reference those. We've actually been using the planner now for over a year, and we've had some really good positive feedback from our providers. And I think the main feedback that we've received is that the planner has provided a really good structure and a really good focus for the development of the T-levels. And those are just a few of the actual quotes that we've had. So you can see it's allowing people to organise their thoughts and develop their curriculum and provide really good focus. Other benefits, you can do more than just the sort of simple kind of recording of your progress. So if you want to, you can use it also to start action planning and allocating tasks to different people and monitoring their completion. And of course, from the Association of Colleges perspective, as your T-level advisors, it allows you to easily share your plans with your advisor, particularly in those keep in touch meetings, and that's really valuable. And another benefit, if you're thinking of developing transition plans in the future, transition programs in the future, that is also now a part of the plan. So when you get onto developing your transition programs, you can also include that. So just finally, if you haven't already done so and you want to access the planner, then please contact us via email on the email address shown there. So that's tlevelsupport@aoc.co.uk. And the information we need is your school or college name, the name of the T-level plan owner, so the person you want to own that plan, and their email address. And then we'll sort everything out within a day or two, and you'll then have access to the plan. Oops. Do that.
Okay, so I've just put the I've just put that address in the chat as well. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the actual event itself, the question and answer panel. So, Richard.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, me again. So I think the best thing to do is perhaps just meet the panel. So if the panel members can perhaps just briefly introduce themselves and their organisation. So I'll start as they are on my screen. So I'll start with you, Kirstie. So can you just introduce yourself?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name's Kirstie Kohling. I'm assistant principal at Notre Catholic Sixth Form College up in Leeds, or up or down or across, depending on where you are in the country. I'm currently responsible for quality and curriculum, and part of that was introducing and overseeing T-levels at the college.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kirstie. Next on my screen, I've got Maggie.
Hi, everyone. My name's Maggie Law. I hope you can hear me okay. Yes, great. There was a little issue with my mic earlier. So I'm an assistant director for the Faculty of Vocational Studies at Newcastle and Stafford Colleges Group. So that's Newcastle under Lyme College, and we also have the Stafford College campus as well. I've been heavily involved in the implementation of T-levels here at NSCG.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maggie. And then finally, Alex, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, all. My name's Alex Charlesworth. I am the Industry Placement Advisor here at the Association of Colleges. Our team has supported all Wave 1, Wave 2, and now Wave 3 providers with their industry placement delivery. Prior to starting this role, I did work in an FE college for 7 years, facilitating work placement, the CDF industry placement, and then we were part of the Wave 2 industry placement delivery. So any questions, queries about industry placements, I'm here to hopefully try and answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So just a quick reminder then, please do put your questions into the chat, and I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat while also keeping an eye on the screen. We will ask those questions as come in. We have had a few questions in advance, so I'm just going to start with that first question. So what has been the biggest highlight of your T-level journey so far? Kirstie, what's been the biggest highlight of your T-level journey?
Oh, that's a tough one to start with, isn't it? There's been a lot, I think, for me personally. What we were Wave 1 provider, I think it was in 2020, if I remember rightly, and we launched a digital T-level, and we were one of the few sixth forms to actually do that. So my highlight was the summer, when we got the results through for the students, and to see them go into higher degree apprenticeships and to see the journey and the progression and it be a success. One, it was obviously a relief because it's a new course, but that's why we do it. And the opportunities they got from studying the digital T-level, that's probably got to be the biggest highlight for me, for them. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Maggie, how about you?
I would say we started as Wave 2 providers with the early years T-level, the childcare and education, and the highlight, I would say, would be the student feedback actually, and the parent feedback about the T-level, because recruitment at that stage wasn't easy. You know, we were all battling with quite limited information in schools and in careers guidance and services, parents being unsure and potential students being unsure about the qualification. So, and the staff being unsure about the qualification. And it was just really heartening to see this programme of study really working for these young people, and retaining the students. Then starting health and social care T-level in 2022, we've also had fantastic feedback, along with the digital and engineering pathways that we're starting. So it's been, I would say, learner and parent feedback has been really heartening and quite surprising, because we didn't know what to expect due to all the perceived apprehension. Okay, so
that's some nice positive comments there. So I know from talking to a large number of providers that one of the things which I think at the start of the kind of T-level journey is a concern, is finding industry placements, finding those placements for your students. So have you managed to find industry placements for all of your students? You know, what sorts of techniques did you use to make sure that you had sufficient? So we'll go back to Kirstie.
Yeah, I know a lot of providers are worried about this. I think we were originally again, you know, it's worked for us, so I'll share it. We decided to restructure in terms of some of our support staff around how to get placements and supporting students in terms of tutoring. So the key thing for us was to not have heads of department trying to recruit and get placements for students. That's not something particularly that our heads of department were skilled at and had the time to do. So we employed an employer engagement lead who is from a recruitment background. Had lots of contacts already, lots of energy, wasn't upset if somebody put the phone down on her lots of times, and was very tenacious and kept going, and speaks the language of the employers. I think that's really important. So that's one of the top tips, definitely, if you have got somebody like that in your organisation, or you can go out for somebody like that. We haven't struggled to get any placements for any of our T-levels. We've filled all the digital placements. No problem at all, and we've got providers again coming back this year now for, you know, they want more placements, they want a pipeline of people coming through from the college. I think again it's a different model, so it depends on what works for you and where you're based in the country. We do collaborate a lot, and we're in collaboration with Leeds City College currently. We're part of a citywide approach for the health T-level. So we work very closely with the Leeds Healthcare Academy and all of the hospitals trusts. We work hand in hand with Leeds City College, who are a competitor college, but we've done that to negate the competition for placements, basically. That was an agreement in order to make it work to go forwards. So again, we're guaranteed placements, you know, quality placements at some of the big teaching hospitals where students are going to get really, really good experiences. And that also involves community care as well. In terms of education childcare, again, that there seems to be lots of sort of opportunities and nursery placements for students there. So, you know, that would be my advice. But no, we're lucky, I guess. We haven't struggled for placements at all.
Okay, that's really interesting, Kirstie. And Maggie, how about you? Has it been similar for you, or have you had a different approach?
Yes, similar approach to Kirstie, in so much as we restructured and we recruited a T-level manager that was predominantly employer engagement, so kind of overseeing all of the needs of all of the areas. In early years in health and social care, we maximised those contacts that we'd already got, because other qualifications, BTECs, cash, they also required an element of placement. I think the thing that we needed to do there was to identify out of those current employers the ones that could offer very robust and meaningful placements, and not just a tick box placement. So we did an exercise whereby we ensured that the employers understood and knew the commitment that was required from them. So we got that buy-in. Again, similar to Kirstie, we've got really extensive links within the local community, with the local authority, the integrated care boards, the health academies that are starting. We've got more of a struggle in this area with our local hospital, but we have made some headway there now. So I think, you know, it's just getting that in and getting that confidence. Really, there was quite a lack of understanding around the health T-level within our local hospital. So I don't know if any new providers might come up against that, and the kind of lack of buy-in was coming from their perception that a T-level learner would be required to carry out clinical practice, and, you know, T-level midwifery student would be in a birthing suite, and there was this horror attached to it. And once we were able to kind of allay those fears and explain that the T-level curriculum isn't about these students actually doing that, and it's not going to impede the quality of care that they're giving. In fact, it's going to provide that pipeline into care, into social care. Then, you know, we've managed to change perception, but that has taken some work. I think within some communities, the hospital trusts have already you know, had that buy-in straight away about T-levels, but that's not consistent nationwide.
Okay, thanks very much, Maggie. So I'm actually going to move on to Alex now, because and just change the question ever so slightly, because I can see in the chat there's a question about regarding industry placements. Is there a bank of resources to aid providers? For example, information for employers, guidelines, software resources for keeping in touch, mentoring, etc. So Alex, are you able to kind of provide some insight on that?
Yeah, of course. So one of the great things that's come out of the last 3 years of support for providers on the Wave 1, Wave 2 and Wave 3 delivery is we've been really fortunate to see best practice examples of what providers have done on a national perspective. So we've created an online resource, which we call a Padlet, where we pull all of those resources together that help providers with their tracking and monitoring, the strategic planning, anything that you can think of, it will be on our Padlet. So we kind of use that when we support providers with our kit meetings. And I can think there are some really, really good resources out there as well on the Gov website as well. But I think the difficulty with going on the net and going on the internet is so many of these resources are spread over so many different areas that sometimes it can be very, very difficult to pull the exact resource that you need. But that's what the team are here for here at the AOC. Lots and lots of providers drop us a quick email with queries and questions they have that are very specific to their delivery model. And usually we will find something on our Padlet resource that will help them.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So I'm just having a quick look. There's another question that's just come in, which is from an academy, it's Robert Pattinson Academy. So they say they are an 11 to 19 mixed comprehensive with a traditional A-level post-16 offer with some vocational. They're looking at T-level hospitality for catering in September 24. How have providers blocked within their timetable, committing 3 standard options to the T-level timetable? So I'm guessing this is, you know, are you using perhaps a block placement or a day release model, or do you use a variety? So Maggie, I mean, what does your timetable look like for your T-levels?
So really, we're led by the employers to some extent with this. So in our childcare and education T-level and health T-level, the model is for childcare and education 2 days per week on placement, because they're the T-level that's required to do the 750 hours as opposed to the standard 315. And with the health T-level, for a lot of students, it's 1 day a week. However, for our hospital links, we are working on a timetable of block placements for our T-level learners. And where we've got the opportunity for a really good substantial placements for students, we are going to be led by the employer, and we are going to adapt our curriculum delivery to make sure they're exposed to every single placement opportunity that they can be. In engineering, then typically they go out weekly to the employer, but again, there has been some opportunity for block placements. So it is usually 3 to 4 days in college with 1 to 2 days placement, very much depending on the curriculum, because there's all different levels of delivery hours depending on which T-level you are delivering. So it is tailored to the individual learner and to the employer need, I would say. I don't know if Kirstie uses a similar kind of approach.
Yeah, we're very similar, Maggie. We for digital, we tend to do a block placement. We did a lot of work with employers, and that was the feedback from the companies. This is what they wanted. They wanted them for the sort of about 9 weeks, the 45 days in a block, because they want them to work on live projects. So they're getting the best experience possible, and also the company's getting something out of it. We tended to do that towards the end of the second year. They did do the, you know, part of the 35 hours. We may well do that towards the end of the first year to get them, you know, by then we've developed the soft skills a little bit more, and we're happier for them to go out and represent the college. So for digital and for business, which we brought in this year, we're looking at a block placement, which will be the 9 weeks. For health T-level, similar to Maggie, we have a 2 day a week placement. They go out twice a week, and those days have been set and agreed across the FE college and us, and it was agreed with the hospitals at the very, very beginning that it would be these 2 days. So they're in college 3 days a week. We don't let them go out straight away. We delayed the placements till a bit later. They're just not ready at that point. And we also have a matching process where we have students have to apply for placements, and they match up with employers, and some of them interview them. So, you know, it takes time to get it right, but you do have to be flexible. I think one of the questions was mentioning about sort of block timetabling as well. Now, we're quite a traditional sixth form. And again, you know, we have a small vocational offer, but we're mostly A levels. So T levels were a bit more of a challenge for us. And again, our timetable, we have a 6-block timetable, but because the T level students solely do T level, it actually makes it easier because you can take it out of the blocking system if you want, and put it wherever you want. Timetabling of staffing then is the challenge around that. And again, I think start off smaller. From my experience, I think we timetabled about 5 times with digital in 2020. We didn't quite get it right to start with. Less is more to start with. And we also had to reward our staff because at one point some of the placements went over our term dates, but this year that won't happen because we've got better at planning. So it is definitely doable.
Thank you, Kirstie. And in fact, perhaps just a sort of follow-up question there. We've had a question about how many hours have been allocated to teaching time. So are you able to kind of give some insight on that?
Yeah, again, it depends on the T level and the weighting, because there's different sizes of T level. We have the medium T levels here and the smaller ones. So there's what I would call a 4-block T level, which is your business, for example, and your digital. And then we've got the 3-block ones, which are more your health and your education and childcare. So there is advice and guidance on average hours, maximum, minimum hours that you need to give to it. So we will look at that with our MAS team, and we'd look at staffing. So we tend to go towards the middle. We might give a little bit extra. We did for digital when we started off, just to make sure staff have time for planning. And we probably did go overboard to start, and we've reduced that down a little bit now. So it's about 20 hours, I think, 17 to 20 hours for digital, 15 to 17 roughly for our health. So Maggie's nodding. I'm hoping it's sort of similar, Maggie, with you.
It is, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'll assume from Maggie's nods that she won't add anything too different to that. And in fact, one other thing which has come up as a question is, when your students are on placement, how do you monitor them? So, so how do you know they are there, and do you actually send someone out to kind of visit them and check that they're they're safe and well and being successful? Maggie, what do you do?
So we have placement officers. In education and childcare, a substantial amount of the final grade is assessed in the workplace. So the placement officer in education and childcare is an assessor as well, is an assessor of the qualification. And in the other areas, we have placement officers that are integral to the startup of that placement, carry out all of the health and safety paperwork, liaise with employers and have sessions with learners whilst in college, and do go out and visit the learners, identify any of the curriculum needs and complete any of the paperwork that's aligned to the T level. Because again, in terms of the placement, that's all different as well. There are different requirements for different T levels. So I know in engineering there's more of an assessment aspect to it as well. So it's just really about understanding the T level qualification for each area and each pathway that you're undertaking, and then ensuring that you've got the placement officer or placement assessor, whatever you would like to call them, that is fully conversant with that and has got all of the information required from the awarding body and understands how they can support that learner best in that placement. And that's vital to maintaining the relationship with the employer as well, because as much as we need those employers to buy into it, we need to show them that so are we. And it's a very much a triangulated process between the employer, the learner, and the curriculum delivery in college.
Brilliant. Is that similar for you, Kirstie?
Yeah, we have what we call achievement tutors, I guess, in school. They're like that form tutors. So we're achievement tutor, but they're specifically for T-level. They tend to come from an industry background, and again, that was part of our restructure. They will be the main point of contact for any absences, and we have quite a clear sort of policy and procedure that students have to follow in terms of if they're not going to be in, and also we align it with the placement where they're at, because they have, again, who is it at the placement, so we normally are very clear, that's the person you contact, that's who monitors it, and then we know exactly wherever he's at. It doesn't always work like that, it's young people, so we have fun and games occasionally, but on the whole that's working quite well. In terms of sort of monitoring them, we go out, our achievement tutors will go out on initial visits, they're like the welfare visits, so they'll go out 2-3 times for most of the placements. The final sign-off will be our head of departments. They will go out, meet with the employer, with the student, and go through all the objectives and do a final sign-off. The complicated one, like Maggie was saying, is the education and childcare one, which needs a fully qualified assessor. So again, if you are going to run that, you know, be aware that you will need to appoint somebody who is able to assess at that level.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kirstie. So we had a couple of questions which I think are perhaps more aimed at Alex, so I'm going to aim them at Alex. So there's a question about, is there an example employer recruitment plan that can be shared with those just starting out? And also, is there a bank of resources that a new T-level provider could use to support the recruitment process? Alex, over to you.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that we have seen real success when providers have created something called an employer board, which is where they have worked very, very closely with a number of employers and brought them into the college and actually allowed them to help develop their own curriculum. So what I will say, at the start of delivery, so around September, early October time, it's imperative to have an employer event within the provider setting. So making sure you're inviting the providers into your setting, not necessarily industry placement coordinators going out to their settings as well. That is also very, very important, but to bring them into the setting, to give them a presentation, to look at the delivery for the next 2 years, to get them to fully understand what the T-level delivery consists of, some of the key points and pressure points throughout the year. And then it feeds back into what Maggie and Kirstie were saying as well. You are a lot of the times at the mercy of the employer when it comes to industry placements. You can put a strategic plan in place, but ultimately you need to hear feedback from your employers as to what they would particularly like. Some employers might like a day release, some employers might like 2 days a week, some employers may say, I think it would work better in a block over the summer holidays. But again, you've got to work it around your own delivery from a curriculum perspective in terms of the employer set project, which again, some providers will set around about the March, April time. And then you have your core paper 1 and core paper 2 examinations at the start of July, end of May. So again, the providers need to explain that to the employers as a collective, as a group. Getting those employers into the setting, we've always gone with the traditional methods. And I think Kirstie mentioned a really good tip really is employ someone to be an engagement officer. We've had lots and lots of people in the past who have come from recruitment, and that works very, very well, because it does take someone who needs to understand the sales techniques of it, to bring those individuals into the provider setting and ultimately sell the benefits, sell the benefits of T-level industry placements. So having that designated person is going to be massive for your strategic planning prior to the delivery. But also one tip that hasn't been mentioned is say to the students at the interview stage, at this moment in time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. They may have lots and lots of contacts as well that they can bring to the table. So really try and utilize the students' contacts as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. That sounds really helpful. Okay, I'm going to ask the panel now to kind of go back in time a little bit. I mean, obviously, you know, you're now in the sort of delivery stage, but we've got lots of people here who are on that journey to progressing to delivery. So if you kind of think back in time, do you remember a specific experience where you wish that you had perhaps done something differently? So if you were to, you know, go through that process again, you'd make that change and do it differently. So Kirstie, is there something you've kind of learnt from your experience where you go, I wouldn't do that again, I'll do it something different? I'm
laughing because there's probably numerous ones. I'm thinking back, we started with digital T-level. I think the timetabling we definitely didn't get right in terms of staffing and in terms of hours. There was a few mistakes. I won't share too much with you about that, but that was early on. But you learn and you develop, and I think once you've got one T-level up and running, you then know when you put your next one on board, you know how it works a little bit better. And again, we're still learning now all the time. I think it's about being flexible and having a bit of a sense of humour as well. You know, you won't get it right all the time. I don't think we did when we first brought C-Techs and B-Techs in, you know, and ASs came in. It's just going to take time and sort of about going with it really. So I think the timetabling for me was probably the biggest challenge, I think, initially.
Okay, that's interesting. And Maggie, what would you say the thing you would do differently if you were to do it all again?
I would agree with Kirstie. Timetabling was definitely a challenge. Timetabling, staffing, and how we sequenced the curriculum delivery. We learnt a lot in the first year from our own mistakes in terms of delivery, things that we could have done better. We were fortunate that we were able to link up with some Wave 1 providers. So, you know, we'd got people we could say, oh, this isn't quite feeling right. What did you do? How did you deliver this aspect? And we got lots of advice. So I think that's crucial to everybody that's starting a T-level, is to have those couple of key providers, key colleagues elsewhere that they can turn to ask. So yeah, we definitely have learnt from that first year of delivery, and that's really opened our eyes in terms of how we've planned the subsequent T-levels and how we will plan those that we're introducing in the future.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're just bound to make some mistakes in that first.
Yeah. I think
try.
Richard, just going back to something Alex said, and that, again, it's absolutely crucial. Again, something we learned quite early on. We produced our own marketing flyer specifically for employers because they didn't know a lot about T-levels. So we designed that. We went out, we did leaflet drops, we did lots of email drops, and it's about getting the employers in. We do employer breakfasts, so we invite them in. We have the principal speak to them about the ethos of the college, the expectations, what our students are about. The more of that you can do early on, the better to try and get things up and running, really. So that I was just sort of thinking that was something that, you know, I wish we'd maybe done a little bit earlier, you know, before we'd learned that was really important.
Fantastic. I can see there's a question has come in, which I guess is more, not so much about timetabling in the kind of, you know, week by week sense, but more the kind of the broader picture. When have you decided to put your exams? Have you divided up your timetable? Because obviously you have a choice to do them in year 1 or year 2. You know, so what was your decision and perhaps why? So Kirstie. Oh, so you're on mute at the moment.
Apologies. We went initially with the May entry. We wanted to get it done and dusted, if you like, and opportunities for resits for students. Year 2 can be very busy with occupational specialism and then obviously placement. So I think for us, the focus very much in year 1 was teaching a little bit like A-level, and you assess the same. You know, you have regular assessments that need to be rigorous. You know, students need feedback. If you've got, you know, topics or areas that your staff aren't comfortable with, then get somebody in. We have a lot of employers who come in who will deliver for us or with us. So that's something that's important. But again, I don't think we didn't find it particularly that much different from traditional A-level in terms of that delivery. We have made a slight change for digital in that our year 1 students will sit in November instead, partly because of the heavy coding sort of part of the course. So we wanted this year to try something different and to see how that went. But at the minute, we're all for the May deadlines. Okay.
And Maggie, is that similar for you?
Yes, we're all for the May deadline as well. And I think just to reiterate what Kirstie said, is that our T-levels sit within the vocational areas. So T-level in education and childcare sits with our vocational offer, similarly with all the other T-levels. But it is very much aligned with that A-level delivery and assessment model. So I think another tip for providers is, irrespective of where it sits, it's to look at that delivery and assessment model that's aligned with the A-level provision as opposed to a BTEC.
Yeah, and I can see that the person who's asked this question has also asked about, were there any issues with, you know, lack of resources, such as, you know, a limited number of past papers and perhaps, you know, that example material. So, you know, did your staff feel confident that they'd, you know, that the specification was sufficient to know what you had to teach, or do you feel that, you know, it's becoming clearer as time goes on? Maggie?
Initially, no, there weren't enough past papers because there'd not, you know, it was such a new qualification, and that was definitely a challenge for staff. But we had a bank of our own resources and exam questions. As soon as there were any exam questions available, teams were absolutely on it straight away. Lots of consultation with the awarding body. I think if you can find a key person with the awarding body, tap into that person and ask for those expert sessions to be delivered to staff to help them understand that specification. Talk to those awarding body experts, really utilize that. But yes, there was definitely a lack of resources initially, and obviously that's improving as time is passing. But staff did really well with what was available to them, but absolutely tapped into the knowledge of those Wave 1 providers and from the awarding bodies. Yeah,
is that would you agree, Kirstie, with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being in Wave 1, I think digital was a real challenge for staff. You know, there were no textbooks available. In terms of past papers, I think we were lucky if we got one, I think, at that stage. So again, it's relying on your A-level resources and staff knowledge. You know, staff, in terms of the content, were more than capable of delivering it. I think it's that reassurance that you're doing the right thing. So again, like Maggie says, it's signing up to, you know, we were signing up to anything and everything, really. You know, training courses with ETF, anything the AOC were doing. You know, what information can we get from anywhere else, and again, collaborate with other providers, because you're all in the same boat. I think anybody coming in now, there's so many places that are delivering T-levels, and the resources obviously are much better than they were. And I think, without sort of going into too much detail, some awarding bodies are stronger at that than others. So again, it's figuring out, you know, who's better at what and which resources are the best ones to use.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's really helpful. Now, we've kind of touched on this already when you mentioned, Kirstie, that if you're delivering the early years educator, the sort of childcare, that you need to have a member of staff who's an assessor. Do you feel that teaching staff need to be very occupationally competent, or do you have to get people in from industry, or will your existing staff be able to cope with T-levels? Kirstie, over to you.
I think it's mixed. I mean, my personal view now, certainly if we're going out to advert, which we do on occasion for more staff, I personally like a mix within the department. I think you need sort of your traditional academic teacher who knows how to get students through an exam, how to prepare them and get them confident. But you also need, you know, people in the department with that industry background, particularly I think in your health, T-levels and your education, childcare, if you can, not so much necessarily for digital for us. We've found that hasn't been an issue. So where possible, if you can get a mix. If you can't, you know, we've gone out, we've got parents who are qualified nurses who come in. You know, we sent out a thing to all staff last year because we were panicking, thinking, oh, we can't do this, we don't know how to do it, we haven't got anybody. We had about 6 or 7 people got in touch who knew somebody, you know, who could help us, and that's how we did it. So I think Alex had mentioned that earlier, to use the contacts that you've got in college, and loads of people are willing to come in and help. I think we had one day a week where we had somebody coming in who was a qualified nurse and would, you know, work with the students in terms of doing some of the technical things that staff didn't know how to do. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Brilliant. And I could see Maggie nodding there. Is that the same for you, Maggie?
Yes, definitely having that mix. If I look at health, for an example, We've got teachers that teach on A-level science and A-level psychology that are delivering on our health T level, but we've also got nurses that have decided to come out of that profession and over the last year or two come into teaching. So we've got a really big mix. I would definitely say for the science content in the health T level, it's much better to go for a science teacher than somebody with a nursing background, because it is so science based. For early years, the placement officer role definitely needs to have that occupational background, and the awarding body NCFE don't say that they need a specific assessor's qualification, but it is best practice to have an assessor's qualification. So our early years placement officer assessor has got the occupational background and also holds a TAQA qualification. You know, you could even go right the way back to the D32s, they'd accept it as long as they've been assessing. So for those of you that know what a D32 is, some of you will be far too young to even remember that. But yes, it's best practice to have that. So agree with Kirstie, combination.
Excellent. And we've got another question, so I'll stay with you, Maggie. And it's about sort of setting up your facilities. And I guess I know that I often get asked about, you know, the specialist equipment allocation that you get. So, you know, what sorts of things did you find were useful, perhaps, that you needed to buy? I mean, they mentioned here, especially health, but I mean, perhaps some examples of things that you bought. So staying with you there, Maggie.
I mean, that was an absolutely fantastic resource, and we have utilised it to the max. We've got health rooms on both campuses, and they are set up like mini hospital wards. So have a bay with some beds in. We're using the sim men. We made a decision. We went up to the hospital and to Keele University, and we looked at the resources that they use and made the decision that we didn't need to be at that level of resource. So we didn't need a £50,000 sim man, because we could get one that did the basics for a much more reasonable price, and that was in line with what our learners needed. So in order for our learners to gain competence with supporting in the clinical tasks, that environment has been absolutely fantastic. Just, you know, from a perspective of hand washing and cross infection, carrying out some clinical activities. So we bought the hand washing machines. As I said, we bought proper hospital beds that were quite costly. Quite a lot of the observation equipment that we felt learners need, well, that learners do need. And we've recently had delivered, in fact, we've got the training for it next Wednesday, some anatomage boards that is a really useful interactive resource and fantastic for A&P. And, you know, our T-level students will need access to those anatomage boards, but they will also support students on other programs as well. So it'll be resources that we can really maximise. In terms of early years, we kitted out a classroom, and we'd already got versions of this in place, but that funding just helped us to take it to the next level. So, and it's quite impressive when you're recruiting new students. It's impressive to the students, it's impressive to the parents, and also to the employers, because from a placement perspective, they can see that their simulated environment is being utilised for the preparation of the learners, so that we fully appreciate that we can't just drop a learner into a placement. There's a lot of work that we need to do, not just on the softer skills, but also on some of the activities that they need to carry out.
Fantastic. And Kirstie, what sorts of things have you purchased?
Yeah, very, I agree with everything that Maggie said. That specialist equipment funding, when it comes through, I think the advice is not to rush into it, and to do your research, really, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and you know, some of it's very expensive. Do you need it? Is it going to help the students? So again, we actually visited other places. We did a lot of research in terms of what we were going to need and how we wanted to set it up. And we actually went with a company, and they provided everything and set everything up. So we decided for us that was the best way to go. But again, it's the hospital beds. We've got a simulation doll. I think it actually speaks to you like a patient. I'm not sure. I've avoided that experience so far. Manual handling dolls, hoists, yeah, you know, sink washing, all the typical things that you'll need the students to do. So the health one actually was quite easy. For education childcare, we weren't set up actually for that. So that is more of a challenge for us. We are looking at setting up like a forest school nursery within a classroom, or within, you know, an area of a classroom. It doesn't have to be a whole massive area. So we're currently working on that at the moment. And again, for T-level, different, again, it's industry standard computers, double screens. They seem to be larger than your average screen. Somebody digital will be able to explain that. I tend to go with it. And again, it really depends on the courses, what you need. But very keen to make it industry standard as much as possible, that experience. And I think one of the other things is, as well, and I know some of the colleges have done this, is looking at sort of award packages for T-level students. So when you come to us, you're going to be guaranteed you're going to get the following. And I think some colleges are providing laptops for students on T-level, so they can take them with them, or tablets. You know, it's just anything really that's a little bit different from, you know, your A-level courses and things that they're going to need.
Fantastic. Now I know that you know, staff you know, always, you know, they're familiar with perhaps the qualifications that they've been teaching in the past, and you know, they learn that T-levels are, you know, the thing they're going to be moving on to teaching. So in your experience, is the reality of delivering T-levels living up to the expectations of the staff and maybe the students as well, and the employers? Or, you know, how is that, how have the staff and the students found the introduction of T-levels, Kirstie?
So to be really honest, thinking back, I think different departments have handled it differently. In terms of from a management point of view, it's taken a while. You know, it's a big change for staff, particularly if they're used to A-level and your C-Tech and your B-Tech courses. So, you know, it's bringing them with you, and in terms of looking at all the positives. And there's been a lot of stress for some staff around the planning and not having resources. And I think it's very much that you're all in it together, and it's you know, it's that communication, isn't it? And trying to support one another and working with each other. Again, without going too much detail, I think the majority of T-levels now are up and running. They're working well. Staff are really pleased. You know, they've made really good progress. They can see the outcomes for the students. So, you know, there's one that's maybe not quite there yet, without going into any detail about that. And again, that's being developed as we speak. And, you know, we'll learn lessons, and the board will learn lessons from how that works. But yeah, that's, you know, I think the students, once they're on it, they absolutely love it. They absolutely love it. And when they go out on placement, you see a different student. You know, you hear the employers talking about them, and you think, is that the same student that we have in college? They just flourish and they grow, and the opportunities have been great for them. So I think now, from a student point of view, yes, it has. Staff, you know, are getting there. It just takes a little bit of time. They're quite frightened of it because it's something so different. I think that will probably be the honest answer.
Yeah, no, and I think that's I mean, that's helpful, because I can imagine that the majority of people here are in that position of having staff who are kind of, you know, perhaps unsure about whether the T-levels are the right thing to do or not. Maggie, what about you and your staff and students?
Exactly the same as Kirstie has just said. Initially, there was a lot of apprehension from staff, and then selling this course to students. Again, you know, people were coming to our open days, and we were talking about a course that they'd never heard of, and they were telling us what their career aspirations were, what their future aspirations were, and we were saying, you know, that matches perfectly with this new T-level offer. And some potential students and parents hadn't even heard of it. Staff were also talking about a course that they'd not delivered yet at this point, so couldn't give that wealth of information that they could with other courses like the BTEC courses. So, but obviously, you know, the students wouldn't have known that because they gave it their all. But again, as Kirstie said, it can be quite stressful for staff. And then once delivery started, I think it exceeded then the expectations of the staff, and they could see how it just was all fitting together in terms of the curriculum delivery, and that when we came up against a stumbling block as a department, they would look at it, and we'd have colleagues in other providers that we could talk to, so they didn't feel isolated. I think that's the thing for teams and staff, not to feel isolated in this, to have lots and lots of discussion and review, ongoing discussion and review, and to tap in, as Kirstie said before, to anything that you can tap into. You might attend a seminar on something and think, well, you know, that wasn't really that useful. I had a nice cup of tea while I was watching it, but the majority you will get something out of. So just go on anything and everything while you're first trying to get your head around what these T levels are, I'd say. Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Maggie. Well, I think that's probably answered all the questions. So unless anyone puts something in the chat very, very, very quickly now, I think we've kind of come to the end of the questions. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Kirstie and to Maggie and Alex for being a great panel and answering their questions. And I shall hand back to Sarah for the last sorts of things that she wants to do.
Okay, I think maybe if we finish off with maybe some top tips from all three of you, actually, if that would be okay. I was just going to ask, actually, do you give developmental time to your staff to develop the curriculum? Do they get time off, like timetable? Is there a commitment there to staff, to Kirstie?
Yeah, we tend to do our trainings, tends to be on a Tuesday evenings. So we will, staff can do in-house training for that. Some actually might go online, there might be various things running, but we have a staff CPD budget that we've actually increased and allocated to that. And again, just to mention, actually might be useful, the ETF, we're looking at making a payment. I think it was something like £400 for staff to be released and to go out into industry to gain experience themselves. So it's certainly worth having a look at things like that staff can go on day release or do 3 days, at hospitals to find out, what's going on. Things like that are important.
Okay, thanks. Maggie, what about you? Do you give time to your teams?
Yes, we do. So we look at what's on offer, either from ETF or the awarding body, AOC, and we identify staff that would benefit. And if we need to then sort out cover, we'll sort out cover. We do try and go for things after teaching's finished, because that does fit in, or on our professional development days. And in addition to that, we have a T-level lead in every area. So we have a T-level lead in health, in education and childcare, digital, engineering, etc. And they are all given a certain amount of remission per week, so they can lead on those curriculum developments. So they don't manage that stays with the curriculum manager, and they don't manage the staff, but they are responsible for supporting the curriculum development within the team and managing that. And that's proven to be really, really useful. And then they come together as a group, even from different T levels, so they can share good practice and also just identify and discuss any issues, any problems that they might have come across.
Right, okay, brilliant. And then Maggie, could you finish off with your top tips then for providers?
I would say make sure initially that everybody in the organisation understands what T levels are and what you're delivering. When we first started to deliver T level, we did quite a big meeting, not just with teaching staff, but with reception staff, school liaison, marketing, administrators, because it isn't just teaching staff on open days and interview nights that have to discuss with students and parents. It's that person phoning up and asking, what are these T levels all about? So just making sure that the whole organisation has an awareness of T levels, and then that depth of understanding is aligned to whatever that job role is. Get that contact with the awarding body. So make sure that you know who your account manager is, have regular meetings. As Kirstie said, some awarding bodies are much better than others and will drive that, and they'll drive that relationship. And for other awarding bodies, you have to drive it. But make sure you do. Keep on. I want this meeting. We need to talk to somebody about X, Y, and Z. And to make sure that you get that support and the staff are exposed to that level of support. And then placement preparation. So as we said previously, we're after robust and substantial placements, and we have to do our bit as well. So that isn't just about what the employer does, it's about what we do to prepare those students and to make sure that while they're on placement, we're facilitating that and supporting the employers with that. That would be my 3 top tips.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Maggie. What about you, Kirstie?
So my 3 top tips, I think the first one is collaboration all the way, even if it has to be with competitors, to, you know, in the interests of college. And I think it's looking at your economic plan if you're in a city, and linking everything together. So it's very much about sharing, which we don't always do very well, you know, sharing of resources, ideas, you know, if you've got even staff across departments sharing, teaching. Again, you know, Maggie mentioned the health, about science teachers delivering on health T level. We've used that model as well. So we become a lot more collaborative than maybe we would have normally have been. So that would be the first one. The second one for me is the marketing side of things, which is absolutely crucial. So again, it's about our employer engagement lead, having the supports. She's, you know, staff knowing who she is, fully giving her flexibility in terms of working hours, off site, on site. You know, if she wants to bring employers in, that's what we do. And again, I think for marketing for parents as well was one of the key things. So again, we've produced a leaflet for parents, and we put special events on for parents talking about industry placements to launch those as well. So that kind of side of it. And the last thing would be about being flexible, because you have to be, because it's new, things change all the time, you know, and it's about not giving yourself a hard time, I think, when things go wrong, because it's okay, and they go wrong and you learn from those. So I think that for me, you know, it's about being kind to yourselves. So they're my 3 top tips. I did notice, Sarah, sorry, that somebody was asking about visiting facilities for health T level. I don't know where that person is in the country, and I'm sure Maggie wouldn't have a problem with it either, but we'd be more than happy if people wanted to come and have a look at how we've set things up, and if they want any advice, we'd be happy to share that with them.
Okay, that's brilliant. And Kirstie, you hosted a brilliant provider insight day, didn't you, as well in November? Sorry, Alex, I'll come to you in a minute. But Maggie, do you want to just say a little bit about your provider insight day that's on the 7th of February, because that would give people the opportunity to come and visit you?
Yes, yeah. So we'll be discussing our T-level journey, and there'll be opportunity to get an overview of all of the T levels we deliver. But if people wanted to specifically talk about a specific T level, i.e. health or education and childcare or engineering, we'll have staff available. We'll have all our T level leads available to do that. We've also got a couple of employers coming in and some students that are going to talk about their experience of T levels as well. And we'll be showing off the resources and providing really nice food. I can absolutely guarantee that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Maggie. And then finally for you, Alex, what would you say your 3 top tips are for T levels?
So from an industry placement perspective, I think my first top tip would be a real focus on tracking and monitoring whilst on the industry placement. There's a huge emphasis from providers to talk about strategic planning prior to getting an industry placement. So lots of employer engagement. How do we get employers on board? X, Y, Z. But once you actually confirm an industry placement, 315 hours is a very long time for a student to do an industry placement. And a lot of the time people can put their feet up and think, well, we've got an employer on board now, fantastic. But it's actually monitoring that student throughout the industry placement. On my Wave 2 cohort of building services engineering and on-site construction students, I had 116, and there was no end of those that got removed from the placement. A lot of them plateaued at the start of the placement or in the middle of the placement. If you're looking at doing a day release, that's 45 days throughout the academic year, which is a very, very long time. Factor in how 16 to 17-year-old students have never been in a working environment as well. So if you're doing block placements, the fatigue that they may have over a 9-week period, it's a real focus of making sure that you are, adequately tracking and monitoring. We used to put in a little block in our calendar on a Friday morning from 9 till 12 to ring employers. We would have that in our calendar every single week throughout the academic year, just to make sure that was our time to check in with employers, just to give them a quick call on the phone. At times we would go out, but it's making sure and monitoring that any issues that arise, because issues will arise. It's a guarantee that issues will arise whilst the student is out on placement. So it's making sure you're there to pick up anything that does go wrong. My second top tip would be something that, again, Kirstie and Maggie have both mentioned, which is bringing the employers into the provider setting. Having breakfast mornings, everybody loves free food. If you're setting up strategic breakfast mornings throughout the academic year, you will get providers coming in, employers coming in, should I say. But the most important event for me is that start of the academic year event, when you try and bring as many employers as you possibly can in to a large presentation to just talk about your new 2-year delivery of T-levels, how you see the 2 years being delivered, feedback from providers and employers, and ultimately just getting a sense and a feel for what the employers want. And that's a big thing, especially if you're going to be moving forward for 315 hours. My final one is parents. Parents are often very overlooked when it comes to the industry placement aspect. It's quite easy for the student to go to and from the college setting. However, when the student is expected to go to a location that might be out of their comfort zone, there is a big reliance on parents to maybe drop them off in the morning, to support them throughout the placement, to get any kit that they may need. Having parental buy-in is really good as well. So if you can have a structured parent event as well throughout the academic year to talk about the industry placement, what the expectation is, because we do talk a lot about T-level from a curriculum perspective, but do the parents understand what is required from an industry placement perspective as well? And when you get that buy-in from the parents, it really does support the industry placement, and it really just stops students from falling off the placement midway through.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Alex. Excellent advice there. And as Richard said, thanks to all three panel members, Kirstie, Maggie and Alex. I think you've been brilliant and given some really excellent advice for our Wave 5 providers. So thank you. I just want to just finish off with a couple of reminders. If I can just go back to the PowerPoint presentation. From current slide. Can everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. So just as a Wave 5 provider, you are entitled to 3 meetings with your AOC advisor. So please let us know in the chat. If you haven't had a meeting yet, or you need to know who your advisor is. People, we have been trying to get in touch with all providers, so please let us know if you do in fact need a meeting with us. And the deadline for the capital bid is Friday the 3rd of February at 12 o'clock. It's quite a big chunk of money available, but it is a big process applying for the capital bid. So if you haven't started that, I suggest you start looking at that. And that's a very strict deadline at lunchtime on the Friday the 3rd. And just to make you aware that there's, you probably do already know, but there's some new guidance being published by DFE in terms of the industry placements, a new framework available. And there's also a new Connect service with employers, so you can actually use this service to look and see in your area if employers are willing to work with T-level providers. So it's work in progress, but it's worth you knowing about that. And if you've got any links with employers, getting them to register and be visible there on that new service. Okay, I think Susan is just going to put the evaluation form in the chat. If people could just take a couple of minutes to finish that or to complete that, please. And then just another reminder, I did mention it at the beginning, but just for anybody coming in late, about the events that we've got, Provider Insight Days Newcastle, Liverpool and Fareham. We've got our T-level national learning event. It would be great to see as many of you as possible there in Birmingham on the 23rd of March. Like I said, there'll be existing T-level providers, there'll be employers, and also our next online event is on Monday the 27th of March, and that will be looking at the planning process for industry placements. Okay, so I think from our point of view, Steve, did you want to say anything? Does anybody want to say anything before we finish off?
No, just for me, just to echo the thanks to the three panelists. There's no need for me to say anything because they've said it all. So no, just thank you to the three panelists. Okay, all right. Thank you for everybody who attended. I hope you found it beneficial. Please complete your evaluation because you know that will help us moving forward with our events. And thank you very much for attending. So once you've completed your evaluation, feel free to go and enjoy your Friday.